We have two more projects, this one and a reliquary project. So this project focuses on some species of animal besides humans. So it could be anything from an insect to a marsupial to a lion, tiger, bear, oh my, birds. You could even do dinosaurs or some sort of extinct species. So it doesn't have to be currently treading the earth. But this is an exercise in two things. Number one, it's an exercise in studying proportions of animals instead of fruit, but also abstracting, but not to the degree that we get into non-representational territory. So we're still representing, but we're abstracting by using materials that get pretty close to making it impossible to do a very naturalistic rendering of your particular animal, but not totally. Obviously, we want to communicate clearly that this is a donkey, or this is a possum, or this is a dinosaur, stegosaurus, whatever. But we're going to be using found materials, and depending on the type of found materials you use, you're going to be able to get more or less realism. Now, one of the things that you need to avoid, so make sure that you're writing this down in your notebook, just like you should be always, is we don't want the materials to disappear. Okay, we want the materials to be there. Okay, we don't want to create like an armature and then cover it up with like actual fur and make it look like a real possum. We want the materials themselves to have a voice. Now, there's two basic ways to go about this. You could have the materials have direct reference to the beastie that you're creating, meaning like if you did a fish and you used driftwood and shells and coral remnants or seaweed and things like that. Or it can be an indirect reference. So, for instance, if I went to the beach and I wanted to do a pelican, I could gather trash off the beach, as I discussed earlier, and have that be kind of a metaphysical reference within the pelican. In other words, it really wouldn't translate to Jason that that's where it came from. But for me, it's like a diary, of an event of my life, right? And then the third option is the materials have no bearing whatsoever. It's just materials that you find. And of course, the official name of this project is Found Art, or Found Object Project. The next project, we're going to be doing assemblage, where the materials themselves do have to have a direct poetic or symbolic resonance within the piece. But this is optional. By the way, you don't just have to use man-made objects. You can use natural objects. Okay, so don't limit yourself to metal or plastic or TV parts or whatever. It can be natural materials as well, and it could be a mixture of natural and man-made materials. But this is not modeling, okay? This is just an additive process where we're taking these different parts and we're using them to create the creature. All right. So this, like every project besides the relief project, is in the round. So we are thinking about dynamic, and we want to have expressive sculptures, not just static, standing there sculptures. We are again looking at proportional arrangement, and specifically at an animal, as we've already discussed. So, thinking about the size of the head relative to the size of the neck. What do you notice about the size of the head relative to the size of the neck? They're the same length, right? And what about the size of the leg relative to the size of the head and the size of the neck? They're proportional. They're about the same. We could also argue that from the ears to the neck, from the neck to the back legs, and from the back legs to the rear end is thirds, right? So we're thinking about those proportional arrangements as we're creating our creatures. We would also notice that the thickness of it is about the same as the width of the head, same as the length of the legs, etc., etc. We will then translate our animal into a sculpture by abstraction, or a representation of a recognizable object that is distorted by virtue of simplification or exaggeration. And this, of course, is going to be because of the materials, the found materials. So it's like a balance between a naturalistic depiction and the material qualities themselves. So, for instance, here is a donkey sculpture made out of old car parts. Now, what I want you to notice is that you could probably walk around this boy and see and recognize every part that's here, right? So there's nothing hidden in the sculpture. So, I can see part of a scrap piece of metal that's had a circle cut out of it. I can see part of a fender. I can see bolts assembled here for the main. I can see a distributor creating the bulk of the head, right? I can see chains and what looks like some sort of candlestick holder for the tail. I didn't notice this until just now, but he's even gotten some of the anatomy there, if you know what I'm saying. So what you want to do in the research stage is definitely create some photographs of your animal and make sure you're getting multiple views. So, horse standing, horse resting, horse galloping, horse jumping, horse rearing, horse bucking, multiple views. Frontal view, side view, top view, back view, skeletal view, close-up of the hooves, close-up of the face, close-up of the tail. Are you following me? And then we're going to make studies, drawings. I'll show you some examples of those momentarily. As you're doing this, go ahead and start looking for trash. I actually told you to start doing that at the very beginning of the semester. Just as you're thinking about your animal, notice things, look for things. Now, we don't want to make sculptures that are this big. We want to keep them, in a general size. So, here's a hummingbird made out of a bunch of wire and PVC and a spring and a light fixture here. And of course, these wires, which are part of like cable TV wires, can hang the bird so that it actually looks like it's in flight. The one thing I wish about this particular sculpture that was different is I wish the wings were a little bit more resolved. And maybe one wing or both wings, kind of flapping back because it feels very stiff and symmetrical. I like the rest of it though. And I like the use of the rake for the tail, But, you could say, oh, well, where are the 5-6 feathers that are supposed to make up the hummingbird? Well, that doesn't matter so much. It still translates into wing feathers, right? Even though it's not exactly the same, okay? But that's too big, right? That sculpture's too big. We do want something a little bit more like this as far as size. What is this?
It's a giraffe.
It's a giraffe. Although it's kind of flimsy, I'd like to see a little more stout construction. I do like the use of the color because that fits with a giraffe, It looks like there's like crochet rings or curtain rings of some kind, and then these are actually the bottom of a ski pole, and then a chain. And it's all wire holding this together, right? What's cool about this one is it's like kind of posable. So if some of these legs were a little bit more resolved, that's a much more dynamic pose, right? So to make it more kind of posable at first, and then try to use stronger, less flexible material to kind of cement the pose would be a good approach. Does that make sense? Are you following me? You're dreaming back there, aren't you? What insect are you thinking about?
There's these like horrifying spiders all over the outside of my house.
Say again?
The Joro spiders.
Oh, right. They're big right now, aren't they? Picasso was the first person to do this. Joro spiders.
J-O-R, maybe another R.
Yeah, they're a recently invasive species from Japan, right? China. Thank you, China. Huh?
Oh, yeah, they look like orb weavers, but...
Yeah, they look like riding spiders to me. I thought they were riding spiders, but I'm like, why are there so many riding spiders?
They're here from the same place as kudzu and stink bugs.
Right.
So we got enough, right?
Thank you, China. China is taking over and we don't even know it. Or we do know it if you're paying attention. Anyway, speaking of China, here's Ji Young Ho, who is a Chinese sculptor. He uses tire refuse. So, you know, you're driving down the road and you see a bunch of rubber on the road. That's from usually 18-wheelers. You know, they have multiple tires. That's why they have multiple tires, because if one goes out, they can still keep on trucking. But he collects the tires and cuts them and shapes them into different beasties. This looks like maybe a walrus or something.
That's a terrifying walrus.
And then here's a shark. This is flirting to me with being outside of what I want to see. Because it's not multiple materials, number one. It's just one material. And you know that there's a core underneath here that he's just skinned with tire. Does that make sense? I would rather see something like this. So dynamic and beautiful. And you can see when you look at it up close, you know, these are spatulas and various kitchen implements that have been strung together. And you can see the armature very clearly here underneath. And that's like a more rigid wire underdrawing in wire that these things are wrapped or adhered to with other pieces of wire. Does that make sense? I like this one a lot. I can't find a nice close-up of this, but this is using the same types of materials. You can see little garden spades here. Here's another spatula. There's a cat scoop. Cat litter, cat poop scoop. Deborah Butterfield was a kind of, I don't know if she's still around or not, but she was a queen of horses as her lifelong subject matter. That's all she did. Horses, out of different materials. She has one piece in the High Museum that's made out of like a thicket of thorns and sticks and stuff. But, you know, this is like from an old tractor. I love the patina of the surface, the color. It's really nice. So we don't necessarily have to match the color, right? I mean, this is a pretty direct match. But they didn't paint it. So in other words, either don't worry about the color so much or use the materials themselves as the color. Does that make sense? Nicole, are you following me?
Mm-hmm.
I like this is like a broken down old horse. You know, he's tired, he's sad. And the materials kind of fit. And I like how, well, number one, these are old barn materials, like tin roof off of an old barn, which is where a horse would be if it's a domesticated horse. And then an old tire, which of course, you know, tire is all about travel, right? And horses are about travel as well. So I like that kind of echo of materiality and subject matter. Very beautiful driftwood. You can see again all of the wire that's tied around, but it's so small that it doesn't disrupt us understanding that this is made of wood primarily. Right. So the attachments can be either discrete or actually part of the sculpture. Here's Here's a little armadillo made out of car parts and spoons. Here's a little ram made out of computer parts.
Ram and then computer ram.
Uh-huh. I didn't even think about that. Thank you for noticing. Say what?
I said that's funny.
Yeah, it is. I really like this one. I think it's very well manufactured. This is not what I want. Okay? Why? How's this different?
It's more solid, not armature.
Right. I mean, the parts themselves are not making up the body of the duck. It could just be a wood carving of the duck, right, that has flat things nailed to it. Do you see the difference between that and this? That's important. Okay? Really important.
It looks like the stuff's like printed onto the fabric in the second one.
On this one? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like it's been dipped.
Yeah. So, thinking about how those parts can stand, like, that wire is not a piece of wire that's been coated with something, right? Or skinned with something. It's the wire is the horn, right? The screw is the eye. It's not a screw painted with paint to make it look like an eye. It's the eye. Does a ram have a slit eye? Well, actually, yes, it does. Rams don't have round pupils, but that's neither here nor there. The fact that this gets skinnier here, well, that doesn't really gel with what a ram's leg would look like. It's probably thicker there and gets thinner as it goes down, but it doesn't matter, right? It works as a leg. All right, so when we get into craft, the main thing is that it's not wonky, and we're going to be using a variety of different adhesives. I was talking with Jason about his fruit sculpture, his vegetable sculpture, and to use hot glue as like a tack to just keep the things together, and then use wire to get a real nice tight wrap, as opposed to trying to hold two things together and wrap them, which tends to be a lot less effective at creating a tight wrap. So to use an adhesive first, and then that's just temporary as you wrap or adhere. Even using paint can be a good glue. We're going to start with under armature. I have wire and tools for you to use to do that with. Now here, I started with one of those shop lights, that hangs. And I just took it apart and reassembled it. And I'm like, oh, that kind of looks like a bug, right? A beetle or maybe a turtle type of shape, right? So here I didn't even use an armature. I just used the material itself and thought, oh, okay, that works as, some sort of bug. And then I used telephone cord to kind of bulk up and build the form. And then I started integrating these, which are ski boot buckles, yeah, and some green telephone wire that I found. So then I would move on from there into adding more and more material. So what sort of gesture or quality should my animal exhibit? Think about balance, asymmetrical versus symmetrical. Think about open versus closed, straight line versus diagonal line. So, this horse is not as exciting as this horse is, right? Obviously. So when we come back, we need to have our photographs, and we'll need at least 5, and then we'll create shape studies in our drawing book to kind of explore the various aspects of that particular creature. So like a study of the opossum, its internal as well as external. And I went ahead and I'm going to do opossum for my demonstration piece. So I just collected a bunch of drawings, images that define the skeletal and musculature. I think it's especially important to have a skeletal version because that's what our armature is going to be based on. Various positions, a front view, a side view, a close-up of the face, climbing view, crouching view, so forth and so on. Does that make sense? Okay? Are we cool? All right, let's wrap it up.